I am yours, I am yours, I am yours. Send me, Lord, I am yours.
Welcome to the Gospel-Centered Pro-Life Podcast. We're going to continue to train, and today we're going to talk about handing out literature. What are some good pieces of literature to hand out and how to do it effectively? Stay with us as we talk about this important subject.
Lord, I felt your passion, I've touched your heart.
Use me, Lord, use me, Lord.
Welcome to the Gospel-Centered Pro-Life Podcast. Appreciate you guys joining us as we continue to do some training and help equip you guys to be effective at the abortion centers, help encourage you guys. Those who've been out there for a while, we want to encourage you with maybe just some ways you can do things differently or just remind you of some things you already know. Those who are brand new, we want to encourage you to step out in faith and use some of the principles that we're teaching you in these podcasts to reach out to women, to see lives changed and the gospel go forth, babies saved, all of that.
Yep.
So training is necessary to really build our confidence, I think,
Yeah.
and really have the confidence that I think it takes to convey to a woman who doesn't have confidence that she can trust the Lord, that she can trust you with the information that you're sharing with her. And we're going to talk about information. We're going to talk about, I think, several podcasts ago, we talked about gathering information and stuff like that, I believe. But now we're talking about how to pass out this information.
Right.
And in particular, we're talking about brochures that you pass out.
Brochures, tracts,
Yeah.
whatever, that conveys what you need them to know
Yeah.
in order to make a choice for life.
Yeah.
Right.
And we've seen babies saved by simply a mom getting a brochure, going
Yep.
into the parking lot, grabs a brochure, doesn't stop and talk, but takes that brochure. Some of them take it inside the abortion clinic.
Yep.
And that was Izzy's story.
It was. Actually, it happened today. That
Okay.
happened today. One of our counselors, a car stopped for her in the road. She handed them a brochure. She had very little time to speak with her. Plus, the woman was Hispanic and didn't speak much English. So she gave her one of our Hispanic brochures. They drove in. Actually, they didn't even drive in. They didn't even enter. They told us they were there for an abortion, but they did not even enter. She looked at the brochure and they drove on past.
Wow.
And never came back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So God uses this information. The podcast we did where we interviewed Izzy, it's
Right.
been a while ago. I don't
Yeah.
even know how long ago it's been.
Yeah.
But her testimony is basically that she got a brochure going into the abortion center, didn't even really stop. She didn't stop and talk. She didn't even stop and tell us on her way out that she was choosing life.
Right.
She got the information, like I mentioned, that had your number on the back of it
Right.
and called you a couple of months later. Said, hey, that help that you guys were calling out about, I want to take advantage of that. And so
Yeah.
we were able to connect her with a mentor. They gave her a baby shower, and she's been a friend
Yeah.
of the family ever since.
She has. Baby's 2 now.
So we're going to talk about passing out information. We're going to talk about maybe some of the most, I think, effective information to hand out. And cue you guys in on, if you're one of our missionaries with Love Life, you should already have information, but I want to cue you guys in on some available information that we have on the Sidewalks for Life website. So there is a section there where we have downloads where you can just download. We have signage, and this is kind of just, it's not branded with any particular brand or anything like that. Sidewalks for Life is not a brand. It's just a website that we have for equipping. And we've thrown some things out there. And in the section Printable Resources, you'll see that at the top, there's some literature. There's 2 brochures that we designed some years back that are really pointed and focused on the women going into the abortion center. They say hope and help for you on the front. One of them has a graphic image inside of a victim of abortion. We think that can be effective. Some people maybe are not comfortable with sharing that. So we have one available that doesn't have that graphic image inside. We may talk a little bit about that, using graphic images and information that you hand out.
Right.
But just wanted to cue you guys in on that available. These are downloads that you can just click on the picture of it, and right-hand corner, there should be a download button, depending on the browser that you use. You download that, take it to a local print shop that can print it. It's a trifold, so you'll have to tell them that. Maybe there's an online resource for this. I haven't found on Vistaprint A lot of people use Vistaprint, that they have a trifold of this size that you can get them to print out for you. But it's just there for you guys to do with what you feel is best.
And totally free.
Yeah.
We provide it because we've had a lot of experience out here. We kind of know what sorts of information the people are really most maybe swayed by.
Yeah.
And that's what we've tried to get into those brochures. Because, the whole reason for handing out those brochures is that in almost every abortion center that someone is going to minister at, you're going to have limited time and limited access.
Yeah.
And so how can you reach women given those limitations? And a brochure can talk to them for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the words that you were unable to say, but they can then see it for themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't feel at all comfortable in a one-on-one conversation.
Right. Yeah.
And you just hand them a brochure. I mean, I would hope that you would have some things that you could say along with that. But if nothing else, it's kind of like sharing the gospel. Give them a gospel track.
Right. Yeah.
It speaks volumes, and it can say what you can't.
Yeah.
It can say what maybe you don't feel you're equipped to say.
Yeah.
Hand them the brochure.
Yeah.
Let God deal with them.
So you've kind of started thinking about, well, what sorts of brochures then are important, and we've written an article that goes along with this podcast.
We didn't.
We
You
didn't.
did.
That's true. I did it all on my lonesome.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Well, what takes you 47 minutes takes me
Right.
47 days as far as writing is concerned. That's why Vicki writes all of these articles. But I do plant the seeds sometimes of the ideas for the articles.
You do. And you can always expound upon my framework in ways that I cannot, which is why we make a good
That
team.
makes us a dynamic
That's
duo
right.
in
That's
this
right.
sense, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
One
So-
of the things I want to mention, and maybe you do, gosh.
Being
this
as he's
even-
carefully read over.
Yeah, I actually did read over this article, but I read a lot of stuff, so I can't always remember what I read and what I didn't read. But I want to mention something that I mentioned in just talking to some folks the other day about handing out information. Someone was asking me about kind of like what we hand out and why we don't hand out particular information, like this information, that information.
Right.
And one of the things I said, and maybe you disagree,
Okay.
but I think you'll agree because I'm right
Okay.
a lot of times. Humbly, I say that humbly.
The most humble man
The-
who ever lived other than Moses.
Yeah. I mean, I taught him how to be humble, though, so there's the thing. But less is more in
Right.
this situation.
Yeah.
Because I've been to places where I've observed ministry, people are doing the best they can, so I'm not nitpicking anyone. I'm not trying to point out anyone. If you do this, I'm sorry. It's not you I'm talking about somebody else.
Right.
But where they will hand out a whole bag full of information. So there'll be like a Bible in there or a New Testament or some book that talks about abortion, just a bunch of stuff. And you got to think, though, from the mindset of a scared young mother going into the abortion center, if you give her a whole bag of stuff, I would bet you none of it's going to be read.
Right.
You really need something that gets right to the point.
Yeah.
That really speaks to her heart. You think about in our day and age, we're a bullet point, just glimpse, get it in a glimpse kind of society. You got to be thinking like kind of social media mindset, right? When you're scrolling through and you see a long bunch of words on a social media post, I mean, you don't because you're a writer and a reader.
Yeah.
You don't keep scrolling, but I do.
Yeah, I do sometimes though. No,
like-
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You give them, the whole how the Bible was created.
Yeah.
That's not the pressing issue is why should I get an abortion and why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Talk me out of it if
Yeah.
that's what I shouldn't do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do think it's appropriate, which we do in the brochure that we have, to weave the gospel
Of course.
and to weave scriptural truth into
Right.
it.
Right.
Right? These scriptural foundational truths are important. After all,
Yeah.
if God's word didn't tell us that human beings are made in the image of God, then what in the world are we even doing out there trying to get people not to kill their children, right?
Right.
I mean, people kill dogs and cats all the time, running over them on the road and stuff, and we don't
Yeah.
stand out there and plead with them not to do that.
Yeah.
Because their value is different, right? Because the Bible says so.
Although I don't want people killing cats and dogs on the road. I just want to make sure you know that.
I understand
And
that
I
you
probably
don't.
would stop them, but
You
I
might.
get your point.
You get my point. They're not
Okay.
because God says human beings are made in the image of God.
Right.
We do what we do. The
Yeah.
value of human life is based on what God says in His Word. And so we put his word in our brochures. I really think it is appropriate to put God's word in the brochures, but I do not think it's appropriate to have a whole book trying to give it to somebody going into the abortion center that explains all the scriptural proof that human beings are made in the image of God and why abortion is wrong based on the scriptures and all this other stuff.
Right. So pick the most salient scripture that is most convincing and convicting.
Yeah, that gets right to the point, that cuts to the heart.
Yeah.
And I think really our 3 talking points that we talk about are important if you're going to use a brochure and hand that brochure out.
Yeah.
Those 3 talking points, expounding on those, a brochure that does that, I think is effective. It gets right to why they're there.
Right. And so that is kind of the first category of brochures that we have. We are focusing on the abortion-minded woman entering the abortion clinic.
Yeah.
And so our informational brochure is, we include the 3 talking points. We include the very important critical Bible verses, and then and some of the resources.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we also include explanations of abortion procedures.
Right.
That's something that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's necessarily out of the framework of the 3 talking points that we talk about, because I think if you talk about abortion procedures in that, you're describing the humanity of the baby.
Right.
Because you're talking about what these procedures actually do to the baby. So I think that comes under the framework of the humanity of the baby. But I think it's important because many of these women go into the abortion centers and have no clue. They think that abortion, suction abortion is just kind of like this magic thing, surgical thing that happens, and their baby's not yet a person, and they're just going with their life, or the abortion pill is just this magic pill that they swallow and their baby disappears and and the problems disappear and they go on with their life. When you can describe to them, which we do in this brochure that we hand out, and this brochure that we've made available to you guys on the Sidewalks for Life website, it breaks that stuff down and it kind of tears off that overlay and the lies that this is just some kind of sterile medical procedure, surgical procedure. It really shows the act of violence that abortion is. And I think that's a powerful way to help a mom choose life for her baby.
It is, and I have had many, many moms, including one I'm still been counseling for many months, who would not look at or explore for herself what happened in an abortion because she said, I don't want to see it. She was very open. I don't want to see it. I know it's probably terrible.
Yeah.
So we think it's important that you see it. This is a life or death decision for a little human being. This is something you need to know what you're going in and doing.
Yeah. And so just to kind of circle back around to the point that I was making, I think just one piece of literature, one brochure, giving that to the women going into the abortion center is enough.
Yeah.
And I think any more than that, and this is from personal experience, and this is from talking to women that we've talked to over the years, and seeing it firsthand, I think any more than that, it's too much.
Yeah.
And I think there could be a sense in which we're trying to load people up with information to cover every subject under the sun, really to absolve ourselves of guilt, because we might feel like in one sense we want to touch every subject so we're not guilty of not saying everything that needs to be said through literature.
Yeah.
And you can never say everything that needs to be said. As a matter of fact, the things that need to be said, I think, are in the brochure that we use. And again, if you're one of our missionaries with Love Life, hopefully you're getting our brochures, the Hope is Here brochures.
Right.
And again, if you're not one of our missionaries, we've made available this brochure, which is pretty much the same. It's a little different than what our missionaries hand out and our folks in our various cities hand out. But it's something that you guys can print off and you can hand out. There's some other places you can get brochures and things like that. I know Ray Comfort's website, they've got a track there that's really focused on, I think Ministry at Abortion Centers at least talks about the issue of abortion. Okay. The 180 track.
Right.
I believe it's Life in the Womb, and it has the 180 movie, a link to that on the back.
Yeah.
I think it's called Life in the Womb.
Yeah.
It's a smaller track
of babies in the womb and
Yeah, and of course Ray Comfort's going to be sharing the gospel,
of
right?
course.
So the gospel is clearly laid out. And the brochure that we hand out has a clear explanation of the gospel along the framework of what Ray Comfort would share. The law breaks down the law and our guilt because of our sin before God, and then the solution, which is Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I think that's very important.
Yeah. So that's the first group, the women coming in.
Yeah.
And one piece of information, I completely agree with you. In most cases, that is all you need to be handing them. And then we actually use a different brochure for the women who stop for us who are leaving,
Yeah.
who are therefore post-abortive.
Yeah.
And that does have different information on it.
Now, that's something that currently we only have here locally.
Okay,
So we don't have a
right.
national brochure. Our missionaries in other cities, we don't have yet something created for them to be able to use, although
Yeah.
that is in the works.
Is the framework for it on the Sidewalks for Life?
So it's not there either. So there's
Okay.
not a post-abortive
So folks,
brochure there.
just bug Daniel, and one day you too can have it, because it is really, they are different. The needs and what you're going to focus on to a woman going into the abortion center who has not yet aborted, you're trying to convince her for why she should not abort.
Yeah.
But a woman leaving is someone who now is going to deal with the aftermath of abortion, the guilt, the sorrow, or maybe just the even rejection that she's done something awful and is going to just bury it
Yeah.
and stuff it. And that is, that's not good either. So we do have a brochure that deals with that. And if you know, I think it's important for everyone to think about what are some things that might be the information you would want on that kind of a brochure. But we do share the gospel again, but there's a greater than focus on forgiveness,
Yeah.
which we don't focus on when they're on their way in, because they'll use it to bolster their idea that abortion is okay.
Yeah.
But also talking about healing resources
Right.
for post-abortive women, which is really critical. And why that's so critical, in part, is a third of abortions are return abortions. So you really want to reach these women who have had the abortion because maybe that baby that day was not saved. But through healing resources, the gospel, and talking with these women coming out, you might be able to prevent future abortions,
Yeah.
save future babies.
Yeah. And again, sadly, we don't have that brochure available to be able to share with everybody nationally.
Yeah.
It's really kind of locally focused. It has your testimony in it.
Right, yeah.
But we are, again, trying to tweak that and craft that to be able to share more nationally.
Yeah.
And even put it on the Sidewalks for Life website.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I will mention, a resource that we've used in the past for post-abortive healing to hand out at the abortion centers is a brochure called Healing the Hurt.
Right.
It comes
Yeah.
from Focus on the Family. I mean, it's good, I guess, in a pinch, although unless they've updated it, I don't really like it as far as the gospel is concerned.
Yeah.
Like, I do not think it really clearly lays out that abortion is sin
Yeah.
and that it needs to be repented of. Now, I think there's a heavy-handed way that could come across, right?
Yeah.
Where, you need to repent or you're going to burn in hell to a woman who's already broken. I don't think we need to convey that kind of message.
Right.
But I think it can be laid out very clearly that abortion is sin. Like if we don't talk about abortion being sin in a brochure that we're handing out, when we want people to be healed of the hurt that is abortion. Now, we understand that it's not just the woman that's hurt through abortion, but the baby is tortured.
Right.
And that needs to be
that has to be addressed.
You got to talk about that, right?
Because she will deal with that one
Yeah.
day in her own heart and mind. I know from experience that, and it took many, many decades before I really dealt with what did I do? What happened to that child? So it'll be dealt with. No matter where you stand on the abortion line, you will one day think about that.
Yeah.
And it'd be really important to help her to think about it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So healing the hurt, when we've used those, I always put a gospel track in them.
Right.
Because I think they are good in some sense. They have some truths in
Yeah.
there that can really help people, I guess. Well, not I guess. I know. Get the healing that they need.
Yeah.
But the gospel is not laid out clearly at all
Right.
in that brochure.
Yeah. And they're kind of wordy. They're pretty there's a lot of information in them.
Yeah.
Once again, kind of violating the first rule that we said, which is try to keep it really as short as possible,
Right,
or
yeah.
they're just not going to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, they're kind of expensive. I'm just looking on Focus on
Yeah.
the Family's website right now.
How much are
and
they?
25 of them are $12.50.
Yeah, so you're handing out bunches of those.
like,
You'll
how
go
much is
broke
that?
pretty quick. I don't know, Daniel.
can
Don't
do the
put me on
math.
the spot like that.
You're like,
you got your computer
It's
open.
like 50
you
cents
figure
a
it
piece,
out.
right?
Okay,
50 cents a piece.
Well, that's not terrible, but it's still.
yeah.
It's a cup of coffee. But another group that you are going to see frequently, well, every time at
Hold
the
on.
abortion
No,
center.
I would be remiss
Okay.
not to mention the connection that we have within Love Life with a ministry called Restored Life, and we're talking about
Okay,
post-abortive
right,
healing.
right,
So
yeah,
Stephanie Reinhart, who's local here, but also has a national focus, and she's like created a network of post-abortive healing ministries across the nation, I think across the world at this point.
Wow.
And so if a woman was to call her from Utah, she knows somebody in Utah that she can connect that woman with that can take them through a post-abortive healing.
Yeah.
And so if you want to create something yourself locally to use to reach out to post-abortive women that are coming out, some information to hand to them, check out Restored Life. You can Google search. You can go on our website, on Love Life's website, and you can find Restored Life. Or I think I forget the website address. It's silly for me not to know that right now, but Google it or email me.
Yeah.
I definitely can connect you guys with Stephanie. And we actually have some of her cards that we can hand out too,
Right.
and get it to people that are coming out of the abortion center. So
and
I did want to mention that. Before
Yeah,
we
that's a
shift
good
gears.
point. And even if you don't have a post-abortive brochure, just having that information, I know of an online abortion healing, maybe putting that on just a piece of paper that you print out, and with maybe pick a Bible verse that's going to lead her at least to begin to think about what she has done in terms of God. That's useful.
Yeah.
That's helpful, and anyone can do that.
Yeah. So I looked up her website, and I'm sure she's got a contact. She's got a contact tab there. You can connect with her, and she'd probably send you a stack of her business cards.
Yeah.
But it's restoredlife.us. So
Okay, so
that's
just
another
some of it.
resource. Or maybe you have a connection to a local pregnancy center that has a post-abortive healing study or class or whatever, and you can get some cards for them.
Yeah.
I think having something tangible to hand out is powerful, though.
It is.
In
It shows that you
in every one of
care.
these settings.
You don't just care, because we're always accused. You just care about the baby and nothing about the women. Well, we prove that that's a lie because we're still there when they're coming out.
Yeah.
And we're handing them offers of help and hope. So yeah, those are all good points. But then thirdly, in the types of brochures typically that we distribute at the abortion center, we give information to the abortion workers. Abby
Yeah.
Johnson's ministry has all kinds of literature. She can send that to you.
Yeah.
Abortionworker.com has a whole wealth of information. And that is, if there's no abortion workers, then there's no abortions.
Yeah.
So you do want to, if you can, send them things that will make them decide, hey, I don't want to work here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, like you mentioned, we have business cards that I
Mm-hmm.
think Abby Johnson and her ministry have sent us
Right.
that just say, I forget what they say, but it has the abortionworker.com
Yeah.
website,
Yeah.
and it has a phone number they can call.
Right. And it just lists the things that they will do to help the women. And it's pretty amazing what
Yeah.
they will do to help the abortion workers to leave the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So knowing the types of brochures, that's kind of the first step of how to pass out information.
Yeah, and I will mention that there are some other resources, some
Mm-hmm.
other, I think it's Heritage House. I keep on saying I think this, I think that. I should have all these websites memorized and all this. I think it's hh76 .org. Has some brochures there that are available for like, I think for Down syndrome, if someone thinks that they have a baby that has Down syndrome, you can hand
Okay,
them
sure.
that brochure.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think loading people up with a bunch of brochures is helpful. But if you are having a one-on-one conversation with someone and they mention this or mention this subject or that subject, to have a brochure that's appropriate
Yeah.
is helpful as they're mentioning
Yeah.
those subjects.
Yeah. I know I don't do this so much anymore, but I used to collect all the verses in the Bible, or a good number of them, that talked about sexual purity.
Yeah.
And when someone would come in and talk about that they are living with the boyfriend or whatever, and they claim to be a Christian, I would have that list of verses printed out, those verses printed out, and I would hand it to them and say, well, you might want to check this out and see what God has to say
Yeah.
about that. Because if you're claiming that you love Jesus, well, he talks a lot about sexual purity in the Bible.
Yeah.
Outside of marriage. So
Again, looking on the internet, thankfully I have my computer right here in front of me.
Good.
So I can look
What'd
these
you find
things up
out?
as I'm forgetting them. But it's hh76.org.
Okay.
And they've got, it's Heritage House is the ministry. They've got a bunch of literature there. They've got You're Considering an Abortion. It's one of their brochures.
Oh, okay.
10 reasons I want to abort. And so it goes through and just kind of talks about these 10 reasons. I haven't read these. I don't know how great they are. It even has an abortion pill reversal pamphlet that maybe be good to have and to hand out.
Oh,
to folks
that's a good
going
thing
in.
to have. Yeah.
So anyway, for those who are not a part of Love Life, there's these resources that are available in Heritage House.
Right. Yeah. So so you got to have the brochures that be prepared with at least some brochures. And the next important step, and I know, Daniel, you spend a lot of time training our Love Life missionaries. And well, then what? Where do you stand? How do you situate yourself?
Right.
Because all the brochures in the world, if you've got them, but you can't hand them out because you don't know where to go, how to situate yourself strategically, they won't do you any good. They won't do the women any good.
Correct. Yeah, just to have brochures but not be able to give them in people's hands is worthless, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what are some things that we can think about then in terms of placing ourselves?
Yeah.
I know every setting's different, so obviously you're going to have to look at your own setting, but there are some kind of general principles, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're going to be like we are at an abortion center with vehicular traffic,
right,
you want to be at the driveway, the main driveway.
Yeah.
And typically there is a main driveway where abortion patients are pulling in. I would find out some abortion centers might have two driveways. Maybe they got a kind of wind over here, not too far from where we are.
Yeah.
There's a front driveway and a back driveway. People do come in both driveways, but we position people at the front driveway because we know it's the most traveled driveway where people come in.
And we have limited team size. So, you know, sometimes you do have limitations in how many people you have and where you can place them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I kind of look at priority spots. If there was only one person out here, where would that person be? And to me, if it's an abortion center with vehicular traffic, it would be at the main driveway. If it was only me out there, I would position myself at the main driveway. I would not move from that position the whole time I was there. I would be focusing on the people coming in, and I would be trying to get literature into their hands.
Yeah.
From that position, typically I can call out if I need to kind of shift roles for a second rather than hand out literature, calling out to people going in. But I will focus at that main driveway. Another thing, if you just have foot traffic, is to, for our folks in Manhattan, position yourself between wherever the most visited bus stop or train stop is, where most people are coming from, whatever direction that is, between that area and the front door of the abortion center.
Yeah.
So position yourself either on the right hand or left hand side of the door of the abortion center based on where people are coming from. Kind of looking, you have to do your own kind of research and figure out where people are coming from. But if you can position yourself where you can reach from both directions people that are coming, that's fine too. But I really kind of look at priority positions, and even I'll go on Google Maps and figure out where the major interstates are, where people would be coming to the abortion center from. And based on that, I'll Google map it and see which direction they're coming from, so I know which direction to focus my attention.
And, that's amazing that you do that. And I know you do that because we're on a loop.
Yeah.
The street that the abortion center that we minister at predominantly, it's on a loop, and the cars can come from either direction. And depending on what GPS they use, determines the direction they come from. So we'll watch. Sometimes we know because GPS today is sending them down, the other end of the road. But we'll watch, and we will always position our people when we have extra people up the road in the direction that we know the cars are coming from so that we can stop them. So have you ever noticed, Daniel, that it is sometimes easier if you can get them the information in their hands further away from the abortion center?
Yeah.
So, up the road or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, obviously getting them information before they get down to the battle zone right in front of the abortion center is good.
Yeah.
And if you've got enough people to do that, that's an effective way to reach them, get them to pull over to the side of the road when you're dealing with vehicular traffic, or you stop and talk with you if you're dealing with foot traffic.
Yeah.
Getting them, before they're about to go in the door is good.
Right.
If you can do
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I feel like the pull of evil is just stronger and stronger. The closer and closer, and usually the contention and the pro-abortion.
Yeah, if you got pro-abortion people, especially.
Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah, if you can stop folks and get them to talk to you before they get to right there within line of sight of the abortion center, then that's good.
Yeah.
Now, all of that is dependent upon how many team members you have, how many folks are out there with you. Because I don't think you want to position yourself up the street if there's only one person there. You want to position yourself up the street away from the abortion center because that kind of hinders you from reaching the people who are walking in and out,
Right.
calling out to them and
Right.
handing out literature
Right. Yeah.
at the same time, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's say we're positioned up the street and a car's coming. The next thing to think about in handing out literature is how do you get that car to stop
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah.
Very important. And there's some people that we call them car magnets. They're really good at that.
Yeah.
And other people, they never seem to have a car stop for them.
Yeah.
But we've seen things that we think help.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We were just seeing it a couple of Saturdays ago
Yeah.
when you and I were up around
Yeah.
the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it does have to do with your body language.
Mm-hmm.
It does have to do with your persistence.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the things I say is we don't want to just suggest to people with our body language and all of that maybe they might want to stop and take our information. But we need to be like graciously demanding
Mm-hmm.
because what we have as far as the information and the words that we can speak to them and the resources that we have for them can be life and death.
Right.
It can be life-changing, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're trying to get people to stop, now we always talk about making ourselves approachable. So I'm not talking about being a frantic, raving lunatic, yelling and waving your arms, stop. To me, that's not helpful. That's just
Right.
going to scare them more.
Right.
But I think first and foremost, smiling,
Mm-hmm.
big old smile, ear to ear on your face, making eye contact as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, really what you're doing is your relationship building. That's
Right.
what you're doing.
In that split second.
In that split second,
Yeah.
in that as they're driving down the road, as they're walking down the sidewalk, make eye contact as soon as possible.
Right.
That requires you guys that love to wear sunglasses to take your sunglasses
Yeah.
off because your eyes are the windows to your soul.
Right.
They need to be able to see your eyes. They need to be able to see a smile on your face. You're trying to gain their trust so much so that you want them to stop and take information, right? So you got to be approachable. You've got to make sure they understand that you want them to stop. And I always will make sure, if I'm trying to hand out brochures, that I have a brochure clearly visible in my hand.
Right.
And so I'm holding that out with one hand,
Yeah.
typically with my right hand.
Yeah.
And then I'm with my left hand sort of like in a waving stop motion. So I might wave
Right.
just a little bit, but I'm having my hand up. You guys can't see me who are listening
Right.
to the podcast,
But doing a stop
obviously.
signal
But
kind
yeah,
of with your hand.
I have my hand
Yeah.
out like that.
Yeah.
I'm still smiling,
Yeah.
but I'm doing like kind of wave stop motion like that, like, kind of hand back and forth.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty expressive,
Yeah.
right? I'm not just mildly, passively suggesting that they might stop or just, I've seen people, and again, I'm not knocking anybody, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but just kind of hold the brochure out just to show the front cover of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And okay, some people might stop for that.
Yeah.
But if you're not giving them, I think you got to give people a reason to stop. You got to pique their curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think holding out, yes, but then waving your hand and with a stop kind of signal gives them an extra reason to stop.
Yeah, and I think what you described. So you're being kind of you're saying. You're almost demanding, graciously demanding, and that all begins with what's in your heart. What's your attitude? And I love to train new volunteers saying, you hold in your hand perhaps the most important thing they're going to see today, which is the reasons why God would not have them kill their baby.
Yeah.
What you are offering is life-saving. This is so important. So know and have in your attitude what I am offering is of value.
Yeah.
And I think if you first of all believe that yourself and know that within your heart, that's expressed
Yeah.
in how you then try to flag them down.
Yeah.
So is that the same sort of thing you would do approaching someone walking?
I'm going to be a little less, I want to be careful that
Yeah.
I'm not coming across as intimidating or anything like that. So I might be a little less expressive with my body language because I'm trying to stop an individual that's walking rather
Right.
than a vehicle.
Right.
But I still want to smile and make eye contact.
Yeah.
I still want to build a relationship with them. And it can be difficult. I know when you're on a public street, public sidewalk, especially if it's a very busy sidewalk, and you can't make eye contact with every person if it's a busy sidewalk.
Right.
But you can tell if people are coming to the abortion center. I mean, you
Yeah.
know the age range between 18 and 25, right?
Yeah.
You know the demeanor that they come with. Typically, they're not smiling.
Sometimes
There's
the
a
clothes.
heaviness. Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you want to, I think, smile and make eye contact. I think you want to approach them not like just run up to them real quick, but slowly approach them if you feel confident they're coming to the abortion center with information. Of course, you're not waving with a stop motion with your hands, right? Because, again, they're walking up.
You're not grabbing them.
You're not grabbing a hold of them. You're not accosting them. But you are walking up to them with information and saying, I think, go right for it. Are you coming to the abortion center?
Yeah.
I have information for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And get the information into their hands as quick as you can.
Yeah, that's good. And sometimes I have said, and this can backfire, but I usually, in fact, I will say if I'm walking with someone and I'm approaching them when they're walking, I will say, is it okay if I walk with you for a little ways? And sometimes they do say no, but almost always they shrug and say okay. And then I feel like that is the first, for me, kind of the first establishing I'm going to be respectful of you. But like I said, it can backfire. When they say no, I stop, but I will call after them. Hey, I've got information that could really, really change your decision today.
Yeah.
Please stop and take my information. But then if they've told me I can't walk with them, I won't.
Yeah.
So that's the danger. And I guess I kind of just play that by ear.
Yeah.
Sometimes kind of read the person. So,
yeah, absolutely. You've got to kind of read the demeanor of people's faces.
Yeah.
If they feel, if you can tell on their face they feel intimidated, that sort of thing, you want to kind of give them space.
Yeah.
Because this kind of flight or fight situation can kick in. We certainly don't want them to fight us, and we certainly don't want them to fly away either.
Right. Yeah.
I do know, though, getting information to their hands as quick as possible is important. So if they're driving a car and they stop, I would give them the information right away and then kind of get into the one-on-one engagement thing, talking to them. If they're walking up, hey, I have something for you. Get the information to them. They might grab that information not knowing what it is, and then they find out quickly, you're one of those pro-life people, and they keep walking. Yeah. They've at least got the information in their hands. Now, some people try to hand it back to you, and I'll just say, no, you need that. I won't take it back. And for me, they would have to throw it on the ground before I'm going to take it back. At that point, once they have it, it's theirs.
Good.
And
okay, that's a good suggestion. I usually feel like, oh, okay, I'll take it back, but you don't. Okay,
I don't. No,
okay.
I let them hang on to it. Yeah, I make them feel guilty if they're going to throw it on the ground.
By the way, this is a total kind of non sequitur, but it happened today, and what you just shared made me think of it. If someone is coming to the abortion center, this was someone driving, and the first thing I did was what you said, got the information in their hands, and I said, "Are you headed to the women's center?" And she said, "Yeah, where is it?" Don't tell them where it is.
Yeah.
Don't tell them where it is.
I know. I've dealt with that several times. I had one lady begging me to point her to where the abortion center was. She actually stopped up the road a little ways. Yeah. And I mean, there was all these pro-aborts with signs, with arrows that say clinic parking. Right. There's all these police. There's like barricades. This is on a Saturday. Yeah. And like, where I don't know if the Lord was blinding her eyes or something, but I certainly wasn't going to be the person that points her to the abortion center. And I did it very graciously. I didn't say, I ain't going to tell you where to go kill your baby. I didn't say that. Right. But I told her, listen, I understand you want to go to the abortion center, and I'm here to offer you help so that you don't go in there. Yeah. But I cannot in good conscience point you into the place that's going to kill your child. Right. Beautiful. And so, yeah. Beautiful. And so she got kind of frustrated. Yeah. And again, graciously, I'm not just trying to be mean, and I'm not trying to withhold information, but I can't do it. I just can't point you into the abortion center. And by telling the truth of why you couldn't do it, you have already started the conversation back to God. Yeah. And to the value of that child, and to someone who is standing by some very strong moral convictions. All of that was communicated by saying that. So we would never say lie. Yeah. We would never say tell them the wrong directions or anything like that, because that would not be honoring to God. But I just wanted to throw that out because a lot of our new counselors will face that, and I've seen some of them just say, "Oh, well, it's right there around the corner." Yeah. No, don't tell them where it is. You don't need to help them kill their baby, but it gives you an opportunity then to either do what you did or give them your agenda, which is, let me give you information and let me tell you why I'm here. Yeah. Now, I will say that I have done it before. Like, I have pointed women to the abortion center unknowingly. Like, I remember a situation in which it was stupid. It's like funny now. Not funny, kind of like ironic. Yeah. Where she's asking where the abortion center is at. So I'm not going to point you into the abortion center. I like point with my
As you're
fingers
pointing.
as I point toward the abortion center like a big dummy, and it indicated her right where it was at.
Okay.
So I have, because I'm a talk with your hands kind of guy.
Right.
If you guys could see
Yeah.
right now, I'm talking with my hands moving all around. That's just how I roll.
Yeah.
And so I just as a natural reaction, if I'm thinking
Right.
about a particular location, I'll point in that direction.
Yeah.
And so, like, keep my hands in my pockets.
Or
And
even your eyes. Don't flick your
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
The abortion center.
For that young lady, though, I'm like, man, okay, God must be blinding her eyes
Yeah.
because it can't get more obvious.
Yeah.
There's signs with arrows pointing you there,
And
she
every-
passed by
Yeah.
the place like twice.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So
That's amazing.
if God blinded her eyes, I'm not going to be the one to open them.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So are there things that we've talked a lot about things to do?
Yeah.
Are there things that we shouldn't do that would not be good?
Yeah,
in
I
trying
think
to
we've
hand out the-
touched on a few of these, and these principles apply, some of these at least, to whether we're calling out,
Right.
whether we're in a one-on-one conversation,
Yeah.
or offering literature, any of the
Yeah.
scenarios in which we're communicating to a mom going into the abortion center. But I think number one that you have here on the list, at least, and I agree, it's probably on the top of the list at least, is don't be frantic. Don't be just, and it's hard, but we want to be confident. We don't want to be conveying to a woman going into the abortion center the same stuff she's feeling in her heart, this frantic, chaotic demeanor, right? We
Yeah.
want to make sure that we got it together. Now
Yeah.
we need that. We get it together by the grace of God, right?
Yeah.
Another thing you have here is don't be angry or condemning. I think if we out of the gate, let's say we do all the things that I just described to you with literature in our hands, vehicles coming down the road, we have our hand up in a stop motion, they stop and take our information, and right away we hand them the information and say, don't go kill your baby.
Right.
That can be a non-starter to the conversation.
Right.
I think we really need to be thinking along the lines of relationship building. We want to gain their trust, right? The abortion center has done that.
Right.
The devil has done that, gained their trust.
Yeah.
We want them to convey that trust from the abortion center and from the lies of the devil to us.
Yeah.
And part of the way that we do that is our demeanor, the look on our face, the fact that we're kind,
The
fact
tone
that
in
we're
our voice.
yeah, the things that we say. We
Yeah.
want to be speaking the truth, but we want to be speaking it in love in an approachable way, in a way that keeps them engaged in the conversation.
Yeah.
But if we right away get to don't go in there and murder your child,
Yeah.
it can be a non-starter to a conversation.
Right. Yeah. There's always the tension of you do need to speak truth.
Yeah.
But when do you speak it?
Right.
And how forcibly do you speak it? And can you speak it in a way that is less confrontive
Yeah. Yeah.
initially?
Yeah. And you have here, along those lines, don't be too aggressive.
Yeah.
We want to be approachable. And
Yeah.
when they actually do approach us, we want to be conversational. We want to be relatable so that they continue to talk to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have here, don't clump up in groups. So when you're trying to offer information, and this is hard. We fight against this constantly because out there on the sidewalk, we love each other. When there's kind of a lull in the traffic coming into the abortion center, we gravitate toward each other. We want to talk and encourage each other, and we talk about scripture. We talk about the podcast, all these other
Right,
things.
right.
And we can tend to clump up
Yeah.
at the driveway where people would typically stop and take information. You got to think again in the mindset of a young mother going into the abortion center who's scared. It's going to be hard for her to stop for just one person standing there by themselves.
Right.
But if you've got a group of 4 or 5 people standing there together, she ain't going to stop.
That's right.
I mean, we've had some that do, but for the most part, they're going to keep going in. They're not going to stop and take information because it's intimidating. There's this whole group of people, and they're trying to hide their sin. They're trying to hide themselves. They're just going into this abortion center hoping they can get do their thing and go on with their life. They don't want a bunch of people talking to them and getting in their business.
Yeah.
But they might allow one person.
Right. And more than one person adds to that already franticness of what they're feeling. If you've got several people approaching, several people offering the same thing, several people talking to you, it just becomes chaotic and frantic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So be thinking about that as far as where you position people. I know just kind of a tip for people that are putting together sidewalk teams and you're thinking through some of the practical stuff and putting together a sidewalk team is thinking about what I talked about earlier, priority positions. So as I look at, and this is what I do, look at a Google map of the abortion center, kind of an overview of it, the sidewalk in front or the public area in front.
Right.
I look, okay, where's the driveway at? That's priority position number one. Where would they call out from to the people walking into the abortion center? That would typically be priority position number two. And they'll be thinking from there and building these positions for people to stand in because it gives people purpose. The driveway person, they stand there with purpose that they're going to hand out information. The person calling out to women going into the abortion center, that person has that position. They take ownership of that position, and it keeps them separated so they don't clump up at the driveway or at one particular area, but you have them spread out because it is important to be spread out as possible so we don't look like this big, intimidating group of people right there in front of the abortion center.
Right. And the same is honestly true if a woman decides to leave the porch or leave the abortion center and approach one of the people on the sidewalk. The tendency is for every sidewalk counselor to go zipping over because they all want to be a part of it. And I understand that. You're just so overjoyed. And that's what you've been waiting all morning for, is to see someone actually want to talk to us. But it's best, really, in most cases, to just let that person for whatever reason, chose to come talk to, and let them alone with her to build that very tenuous relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, as kind of a side note, because some of you guys that are listening may be thinking, maybe you're missionaries with Love Life, or you've been to a Love Life prayer walk or whatever, and you're thinking, okay, you're talking about not having big, intimidating groups of people in front of the abortion center.
Yeah.
And you guys do prayer walks where you have big, intimidating groups
That's
of people.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, we're intentional with our prayer walks when we're able to do those across the street from the abortion center, to do those away from the areas where engagement would take place. And we have, like just last Saturday, we had a group of, I think it was 150 prayer walkers on property that we own next to the abortion center, but we've not always owned property. We've had more than that up the street that walk down and come and pray in front of the abortion center. And yet they do it across the street, and we still have engagement with people. We still have people come and abortion-minded women come and talk with us, stop and take information. The way that we position ourselves and the way we position the prayer walks is very intentional.
Yeah.
And so we kind of get those big, intimidating groups away from the areas of engagement. We do that intentionally.
Yeah. And they sign a non-engagement contract or whatever with Love Life, saying that, it's verbal, but they know that they are not to, the Love Life prayer marchers are not to engage with the women, so that it is not overwhelming. But just so last Saturday, you said you pointed out there was like 150 people, and I had 3 good conversations, car side, because I was up the road, away from everybody else. Yeah. And 3 cars stopped, and we had lengthy conversations. So even when there is a large group, if you position yourself strategically, you have an opportunity to, every one of them took literature, and I was able to speak with every one of them. Yeah,
absolutely. And we're very intentional in trying to train our missionaries as they're doing prayer walks and that sort of thing to position their prayer walk away from the area of engagement at the abortion center, typically within view of the abortion center, but in the best way we can to be as unintimidating as possible. And again, the prayer walkers are not there to engage, they're there just to pray.
Yeah.
And as a sidewalk counselor myself, as I'm there in front of the abortion center and the prayer walkers are across the street, I will oftentimes point to them and say, there's a group of 150 people, or how many ever, over there that are praying for you.
Yeah.
And we've had women that have chosen life because they saw that group of people that were there praying for them.
Yeah. They're so touched
and they were touched by that
and
chose life for their baby.
Yeah.
So God uses that. Just wanted to make sure, to touch on that with folks that might have a question as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. Don't force literature on them.
Right.
While we've spent this whole podcast talking about how valuable the literature is, but never force it. If they truly just do not want to take it from your hand, or they drive away and they're rolling up their window, don't fling it through the window. That's illegal for one thing in most places. But if you just force it on them, they're just going to rip it up. If they're that adamant about not taking it, I never force. But sometimes, this happened today, a man who was in and out about 6 times and just gave us some rather wonderful hand signals about what he thought of our presence.
Yeah.
every time until the last time he pulled over and reached out his hand.
Yeah.
Where you said persistence.
Be
That's
persistent.
sometimes be persistent. Don't think just because it's been refused the first 5 times that the 6th time won't be the magic number. But don't force it.
Right.
But offer. Offering it is still important. Just don't
Yeah,
force.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And like in those conversations or those situations where you're handing out literature to someone walking up the sidewalk,
Yeah.
if they tell you to back the F away from them,
Right. Do so.
then do so. Because typically
Yeah.
it's not going to be very good for you if you continue to
Right.
invade their space. So
Right.
I think being intentional about not invading their space,
Right.
being just aware
Yeah.
that you're breaching boundaries already.
Yeah. You
in
are.
one sense, they're coming to a
Right.
what they believe to be a medical procedure.
Yeah.
And you're kind of stepping in the way. You're like a hurdle
Right.
on the way to that.
Right.
And there's already guilt and stuff going on in
Yeah.
their minds. So understand that. If they tell you to back away, and
Yeah.
be aware of the fact that you still need to be as unintimidating as possible,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if they don't tell you to back away.
That's right.
And you have here, which I really like, don't be late.
Don't be late. Man, that's one of my pet peeves. If you say you're going to show up somewhere, show up on time.
Yeah.
But it's so critical at an abortion center, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. If you can get there a little bit before the doors open, getting there when they open, I mean, great. But if you can be there just a little bit before they open, I mean, some people in this day and age are actually early for appointments, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And you have an opportunity before the doors are open to talk with them.
Yeah.
And you can give them a reason to come over and talk to you, come and take your information. Hey, the doors ain't even open yet. Come over and take this information. Just read it in your car. And we've
Right.
had women come over or stop their car, take information, read it in their car while they're waiting on the doors to open.
Yep. And also, we strongly recommend that no one ever be out all by themselves,
Yeah.
alone, a minimum of 2 people for accountability, for protection, for whatever, for moral support. But so if you're late and one person has showed up, they are hampered. They're putting themselves in a bit of a dangerous situation. They were expecting to have 2 people there, and that second person isn't there.
Yeah.
So that is one of my little pet peeves. I really am very it's rare for me to be late.
Yeah.
Because my mom always taught me if you're late, you're saying that your time is way more valuable than the person that you're waiting for.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's waiting for you. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but don't be late. Show up on time.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, this is life and death, right?
It is life and death. Yeah.
The next thing, you've got a few other things mentioned here. You guys can read the article to get all of this in. But I do want to mention this. This to us is like so very important.
Yeah.
And it's number 11 here on your list. Don't forget contact name and number on the literature.
Right. Yeah.
Now, we do encourage folks to get, we've learned the hard way, haven't we?
we
to
sure
get
have.
a Google Voice number.
And it's so easy for all of you that are like me, very afraid of technology. It is the easiest thing on earth to get a Google Voice number. You just Google it. It talks you through. It's super easy. It connects right with your regular phone. But the beauty of the Google Voice number is no one can trace where you live. And that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you want to cut it off, you can. Like
Right.
some pro aborts got a hold of your number.
Yeah,
and
my regular
really-
cell phone. The police, when he said, how'd they get a hold of it? Well, it's on the literature. And he just looked at me and said, stupid, stupid, stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, I learned.
I mean, they sent Vicky some death threats. So,
Right,
So be praying
right.
for her because that was a
Yeah.
little scary.
Yeah,
But get a Google Voice number.
yeah.
Or you could get maybe some cheap burner phone from Walmart or something.
If you
and
want
get a number on
yeah.
that if you wanted to do it like that and just be
Yeah.
your ministry phone.
Yeah.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah, but they're
but-
going to call you. You
Yeah.
put your number on the literature, you're going to get calls not only, of course, from the people you don't want calls from, because you will get some of those. I honestly, in 9 years, I've had very few of those, though. But if a mom calls you, she's calling again. She's very vulnerable, and
Yeah.
talking to her is so critical. So I always answer all those calls, even if I know that some of them are going to be really nasty, because it could save a life, and it often has.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, we've had
and
babies
no
saved.
last name, by the way. Don't put, just to make that when you put your name again. You don't want them to be able to trace to your home for what there are some unsavory characters at abortion
Sure.
centers. So only a first name.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, this is very important to us because there are people that will just take the information, like Izzy,
Right.
that won't talk, that won't tell us that they
Yeah.
chose life,
Yeah.
but that we would ultimately be able to connect with some discipleship, mentorship, share the gospel with them, all of those things. If they call us, they can't call us, though, if there's not a number there.
Right.
And I do think, because some people ask, well, why don't you just get like a stamp and stamp it on there? Or why don't you just have it printed on there? If you're going to have a number, a personal number, just get it printed.
Yeah.
I think handwritten, though, is important because it's a personal touch, right? It's not just
Yeah.
handing out some literature to somebody, but
Yeah.
it's a brochure with important information with someone's personal contact number on the back.
Yeah.
And then again, just thinking along these terms, obviously, if you're handing out Spanish literature, you want to have somebody that can speak Spanish.
Yep.
So if you have somebody locally, somebody in your church, we've got folks locally that let us put their name and number on the back of our brochures, on our Spanish brochures.
Right.
Because, again, people will take the information, maybe not talk, but call us later. And we've had women that have taken brochures that had a friend that
Yep.
they got a brochure from us. Their friend gave them your number from the brochure, and you were able to help them to get resources and choose life and even
Right.
be led to the Lord.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think we'll wrap this podcast up.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was an encouragement to you guys, a little training and just this practical thing of handing out literature. If you guys have any questions about this, I've mentioned about some resources where you can get information, get literature and things like that to pass out. If you need some clarity on that, certainly you can reach out to me, Daniel@lovelife.org. You can reach out to Vicky at lovelife.org. We'd love to answer any questions that you have, best we can. We're busy people these days, but we like to respond when we're able to. So please feel free to reach out to us. Please share this podcast. Please reach out to us with some suggestions for future podcasts. We would love to hear some suggestions that you have and do some more training along the lines of stuff that you have questions about if we can. So with that, we'll wrap this thing up. And until next time, God bless.
God bless.
Give me an outlet for love. Give me an outlet for gratitude. I know it will cost me my life, but nothing's too precious since I met you.